Uh, Great. So thank you all for coming. This is our Uncovering Your Spiritual Gifts with Magic Mushrooms with my amazing guest, Andy, here from Grateful Mushrooms. We are going to talk about psilocybin mushrooms today, Andy's journey with magic mushrooms, how we can integrate mushrooms in our spiritual gifts and into our growth and understanding our journey here. Andy will also talk about macrodosing, microdosing, and how to access mushrooms, whether that is using them through teas or chocolates, how to find a supplier, if it's Andy or someone that is connected to him. And then we will leave questions for the end. You can, like I said, you can use the chat as you like, and I will pass it over to the expert of mushrooms, Andy from Grateful Mushrooms.
Thank you, Meesh. Thank you. So yeah, I guess I'll start with what are psilocybin mushrooms. Um, they're basically mushrooms that contain a compound called psilocybin that and psilocin that, when ingested, it reacts with our brain, and it basically makes connections that aren't usually there, and parts of your brain that aren't usually connected start talking. And um, yeah, basically when you ingest them, you can tell that like something bigger is going on, and that's what they call tripping. So it's that feeling that nobody can really describe until you just have to do it. But yeah, mushrooms have been around way longer than we have. uh, and as far as we know, humans have been consuming them for thousands and thousands of years. um, we would assume that they had been using them for medicinal purposes as well, from seeing them on like cave walls and Egyptian hieroglyphics and whatnot. But without being able to talk to them, you can't really tell. But people have been finding great uses for them recently with the way that the country is going, the world's going, really. It's a very anxious place out there, very fast paced, and I don't really believe humans have evolved to keep up with as fast as we're moving with technology. So mushrooms are a real good way to just kind of sit back and ground yourself, at least, so you can, not freak out and worry about too much what's going on. But yeah, my journey with mushrooms was basically, I had heard somebody say that they had seen fantastic fungi. So Paul Stamets, I had heard him on Joe Rogan, and yeah, he just started going. He just started talking mushrooms like this, that, lion's mane, oysters, shiitake. Like, I was just like, holy crap, this is crazy. And it was super intriguing to me. So that's where it all started. And I was at work when I was listening to this podcast, and I was just like, this is like what I want to do. So I started researching, and I had started following a bunch of people on Instagram who are doing mushroom cultivation and just just mycophiles in general. And I came across Denver mycology, and he was uh, this guy named Chris who was running cultivation courses out of his house in Denver. And I was like, wow, this crazy dude. Um, but uh, I definitely want to go down there and learn some stuff. So I took one of his 3-day courses after he did a 2-week course. And yeah, basically from that was happened in November. And then that next January, I quit my job. And then I spent the month of February in Guatemala, and we were doing mushroom cultivation courses down there. And that was in 2021. And then last year we went back and did it again, and that's where I met Meesh, and she was a part of that course. And that's a whole nother story that I'm sure we'll get to as well. But yeah, so I've been down to Guatemala twice and taught courses down there, and then have helped out around Denver as well. And then I have just had a couple random like friends, or well, people who are now friends, hook me up with other people, and I've taught them how to grow, um, as well as just providing anyone who needs the medicine. So yeah, Meesh, you're gonna have to remind me where I gotta go from here because I have that short-term memory
No
loss.
worries. Yeah, so to kind of to add on to Andy's experience, the cultivation course is in Lake Antitlan, Guatemala. It is a beautiful, beautiful, incredible lake in Guatemala that just has a very magical presence about it. Has anyone been to Lake Antitlan, Guatemala, or Guatemala in general? Not yet. Highly recommend it if you are a spiritual seeker and you want to travel. It's this lake that just, like I said, has something really magical about it. And there is a space where we were able to take this course. Even if you don't plan to cultivate, I personally travel often, so I don't have the opportunity to be in one place for weeks at a time. I do feel like it's a really nice opportunity to even understand the mycelium network and understand how mushrooms grow, why mushrooms grow, and the environment that they do grow in, because I think it's really a beautiful experience to also know where your medicine is coming from, knowing who is actually cultivating it as well. Yeah, of course, Lake at Teeplan. It is incredible. I hope everyone who is on a spiritual journey visits Lake Atitlan. And during that cultivation course, it was also about working with a group of people that also wanted to learn how to cultivate. Maybe not everyone will become cultivators, but understanding that this was a group of very open-minded people, very spiritual individuals. And this is kind of the purpose for myself, is the spiritual side of things. So Andy, if you want to kind of talk about the spiritual side of mushroom cultivation and the process that you take, because obviously as a cultivator yourself, what you're feeling goes into the mushrooms because they're highly, highly intelligent. And also kind of the spiritual process that mushrooms take when we are holding ceremony, kind of the space holding that you had mentioned, and kind of the spiritual aspects of taking mushrooms from, a spore all the way to the journey.
Yes, perfect. So mushrooms start from spores. Spores are the seeds, and from the spores come the mycelium. They create hyphae, and then the mycelium's the little white stuff, and it kind of looks like roots, kind of looks like a spider web ish, but it grows out, and you grow it on grain or uh, basically grain, and then you use like cocoa coir, and basically you're imitating the soil in the ground. So, and you have to do this in sterile conditions, which is really weird because these things grow out in nature and it's not sterile outside. So, like, that just kind of goes to show you how much we don't know anything about mushrooms. But the only way we know how to do it is keep it completely sterile so that no other forms of fungus can grow in these environments. And yes, it is very important that you maintain a happy, healthy work environment because uh, angry people produce angry mushrooms. And it's just the thing. I can't really describe it. I have, people will tell me, like, your mushrooms are great. I know Chris's from Denver Mycology, his mushrooms are great. But I've had people tell me that they've gotten mushrooms from like other people that they don't know, or that, they were like, they seemed kind of sketchy and they just didn't work. They weren't working for me, that, or even they had a dark experience. But um, I am not too well versed in all of that knowledge. I've heard of like charging water and whatnot and like setting good intentions that way and stuff. So mushrooms are 90% water. So, I mean, there's that.
Mm.
So whether you can put good intentions into them or not, like I believe you can. And it really helps to know your grower, definitely. And I take it from spore to fruit, and I also make chocolates and microdoses. So you have different options of what, or you can just get the regular fruits if you want to just take mushrooms. But as far as taking them spiritually, um, yeah, I had said that I had taken mushrooms before back in high school and whatnot, and those were definitely just a party mindset. And I had said that even when you take them with that intention of just getting fucked up, that like they can still teach you, you know. I mean, I can remember taking mushrooms with friends and sitting around a campfire, and then like I remember thinking that like mushrooms I would get waves of like good and bad, and then like sometimes, you know, you just be like thinking of something and you're just like, I don't know, maybe you want to cry, or it's just something bad, not bad but something challenging that has happened to you. And you know, and I always remember telling myself, you know, just wait 5 minutes, you know, the music will change or something will happen, the whole vibe will change, and then you're happy again, you know, for another half hour or whatever. But even those little 5 minute increments of like just like a deep dark like thinking, like, you know, would help you whether you knew it or not. But then once I started taking these things with intention, like the amount of healing you can do with yourself is incredible. It's really wild. You can, I mean, set your intention, you know, like what's bothering you, what have you been thinking about from your past, or what do you need to work on, you know. And even if you don't have an intention, just the intent to learn, the mushrooms will guide you for real. You'll just lay there and be like, man, I need to call this person more, or man, I need to do this or whatever. And I mean, you just need to listen. It's just about listening to them. I don't really recommend writing them down because I've tried that before and it didn't work, but you'll remember. I mean, just that's why they do, you do an integration period after you're done tripping. And the next day you sit and you basically meditate on everything that happened during that trip. And that's when you write everything down and assess what just happened to you. But yeah, doing it with intention, and that's hard. That's really hard. I've never done it with intention, like here by myself, like just or tripping with friends, you know, like you almost need somebody to like create that space. And we were very fortunate in Guatemala to have uh, like an awesome space created. And I mean, like Meesh said, that whole little Mayan village is just like a magical spiritual place that is already just very magical. So it was a privilege to do it there. Um, but yeah, I've heard of retreat centers and whatnot opening up, or at least like plans of them around the US. I don't unfortunately have any that I can really recommend right now. But yeah, that is the way to go.
Yes. It was truly such an incredible experience in Guatemala. And of course, we all can't go to Guatemala to do mushrooms.
Right.
But like Andy was mentioning, the process of actually creating a space. So what we were able to do, there was about 12 individuals who were on the journey, and there was 5 space holders. So this is something, a word that people might not even be aware of. But essentially a space holder is somebody who is willing to be available as an individual who is taking a very small amount or no mushrooms at all to help those that are on their journey. So we created a container of, approximately 20 people, where we had all set our intention together. We were sitting debriefing with ourselves, or briefing ourselves on what this journey is going to feel like. Chris and Andy, as well as our friend Warren, was also discussing the mushrooms that we'd be taking that particular day. And just understanding that we were creating a space of trust. And this is really important when taking mushrooms, is understanding that the intention is there, but doing it in a place that you feel safe. And if this is your first time, having someone who is a space holder or a guide or somebody who is available to you if you are unable to cope with the experiences that are happening to you. This can range, and I'm sure Andy can talk about what can happen under the influence of mushrooms for those that have never experienced mushrooms before. But the process of setting the intention, the mushrooms are going to decide what they want for you anyways. So ultimately, you might go in saying, I'd really love to see butterflies, rainbows, and sunshine, and you might not be, there might be another plan for you. And that's the mushrooms. They know what you're capable of. Excuse me. But then going into the journey, knowing that you are safe, knowing that you are taken care of. And then, like Andy had mentioned, coming out of the experience and being able to integrate, what did I learn? Should I write this down? Should I paint this? Can I talk this out with somebody? And also talking it out with somebody who understands. This is more than just mushrooms as well. This is also spiritual gifts. So you are going to be very receptive when you are under the influence of mushrooms, and you might notice that spiritual gifts, the idea of clairaudience, the ability to hear different frequencies, clairvoyance, the ability to see different things, claircognizance, being able to sense and know new things, intuition, empathy. And if you kind of want to talk about, of course, everyone's experience is very different under mushrooms, but different side effects that you might feel when you are under the influence of mushrooms and the expectations that you would have in that journey.
Yeah, so it is a hard feeling to describe. It is an overwhelming is a good way to put it. Um, but not overwhelming to where you can't handle it, you know. You might, if you've never, see, it depends because everybody's experience is different. Everyone's threshold of pain is different, you know, everyone's threshold of anything is different. So um trying to tell you that, you know, some people will take them and be like, oh, that wasn't that bad, that was enjoyable and I learned a lot. And some people, like, you know, they start seeing some wavy lines and they just automatically start freaking out and they don't even give it a chance. But just going into the trip with the intent to heal, and I mean, doing any preparation beforehand at all helps, you know. I mean, most of the time people who will like freak out were dosed or like didn't know that they were going to take it, or you know, it was unintentional. But as far as Johns Hopkins, when they've been doing it, they've been having people just lay on a couch and they put um, a blindfold over your face and they give you music to listen to of your choice. And I mean, honestly, I would recommend doing that if you're a first timer, and I definitely have somebody sit with you that knows what's going on, and that you trust. But that is a really good way because the journey is more inward. It's fun to see all the wavy lines and the distortions in real life and laugh at all the stuff. But if you're trying to do a healing work and you're new to it and you know you want to, I'm not saying you're like, I'm not saying you're just dipping your toes in the water. You might go full on in, but it's not going to be, you know, you're not going to have to deal with all the other stimuluses in the world, you know, like being outside, even just like cars going by, like, you know, you're very like receptive to energies and feelings and like the people around you, you know, so you don't want to be going to a hockey game and doing mushrooms, or not even really a concert. A lot of people do go to concerts and it's not my drug of choice for a concert, but mushrooms are more my own like solo thing that I'll do at home.
Mhm.
And I haven't done a actual large trip in a while. As close as I've gotten is my college friends, like one of them, she makes mushroom chocolates and she'll just hand me them and be like, try this out. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Last time I tried this out, it was way too much for me. And I lost the whole day, you know, like I was like, I can't work on this. So I'll just go lay in bed. And that's how I deal with it. You know, that's the best. And then you just take in what the mushrooms are going to, and I mean, like, you're going to be telling yourself what you, I mean, it seems like just dumb stuff, like, but it's important stuff. You know, you're going to be laying there being like, I need to be kinder to people. Man, maybe I was a little too hard on that person, or yeah, this way this person treated me, like I never looked at it this way. Maybe I should look at, you know, or maybe I should call this person. And like it's crazy. Like the mushrooms know what to do. So just put yourself in a safe setting with somebody safe. Even if you don't have somebody, maybe don't do as large of a dose, but you can do it by yourself. You got it.
Mhm.
No, it's no big deal. Have fun with it. Um,
Mhm.
and yeah, and if you have what they call a challenging trip, they'll call it a bad trip. I call it a challenging trip. um I mean, you know, we all have stuff to work on, and you just have to take it take it as the mushrooms aren't sitting there poking fun at you or anything like that. If they're telling you something, then you need to work on it and you need to
Mm.
address it. Or just by them telling it to you, like then you're addressing it just by you thinking about it. Maybe you haven't thought about it in forever and it needs to get
Mm.
brought up. But
Mm.
they are, whatever happens is going to progress you in your life. I,
Yeah.
yeah.
I love that. Yeah, and it's very true. Everyone's journey is very different. And I think we're speaking more on the side of macrodosing as opposed to microdosing. So if you want to, so on this idea of understanding what the difference is between macrodosing and microdosing. And if you want to talk more about like what is macrodosing, how much is macrodosing versus, or how often do you macrodose versus microdosing, how much you take, how often you take it, and your experience with those two.
Perfect. Yes. So a macrodose is a bigger dose. Macro is just meaning big, micro meaning small. And a microdose would be a small dose. And we're talking a big dose of mushrooms would be 5 grams. We'll say that's a very sufficient dose. You'll trip very hard. Even 3.5 grams, like an eighth, you will trip pretty hard. For a microdose, I make my microdoses at zero point zero 0.01 grams. And the point of a microdose is that you don't feel anything. And it's basically just going to improve your mood or your outlook on life. That's the best way I can describe it without saying that you don't feel anything. Some people make their microdoses a little more and you get like that little, like you're like, oh, I think I could feel something. And you're like kind of happy and cheery, and that's fine, and that's good. That helps a lot of people. But like a true microdose, like you won't feel nothing, and
Mm.
it'll subtly like be working on you as you take it throughout the day. But some
Mm.
people need that bigger dose, and I'm pretty good at like I'm not very tolerant to it right now, so I can take a microdose and almost feel that if I'm on an empty stomach. And that's
Mm.
another thing on an empty stomach is if you're gonna macrodose, do it on an empty stomach. It'll hit you quicker, it'll digest faster, and you'll trip harder. It'll be
Mm.
a more spiritual experience for sure.
Mm.
And then the microdoses, people do. There's all sorts of recommendations on to do like 5 days on, 2 days off, or every other day, or 3 days on, 4 days off, or vice versa. Um, I mean, I just kind of take them as I need them, depending on what you're taking them for and how they're using or how they're working for you. You can adjust accordingly. It's
Mm.
We're talking about microdoses, so it's nothing like, if you slip up, you're going to be tripping and you lose a day or anything like that. You can take 2 or 3 and you'll be fine. Uh,
Mm.
so just adjust accordingly and whatever works for you. As
Mm.
far as if you're going to be using them for anxiety or depression, if you're on any medications currently for those, like SSRIs, I can't tell you exactly which ones uh, dilute the effects of psilocybin, but there are some. So I've had some people who ask me, they want to use it for their depression or anxiety, and they'll take mushrooms and they say they don't feel anything. And I had one guy and I gave him 5 grams and I was like, eat all of this, and if you don't feel anything, then something's up. And he's like, I didn't feel anything. And I was like, well, then you need to talk to your doctor, tell him what you're trying to do, and ask him what medication you're on might be affecting that. And then it's just kind of up to them. Like most people won't go talk to their doctor and be like, I'm trying to do magic mushrooms to fix this depression. um, Something you got me on isn't letting it work.
Mm.
And then yeah, and I don't really have the answer for that either, because even people who are willing to do that, like what are they going to listen to me as I tell them to get off their SSRIs? So like who am I? Their doctor put them on that, and then they would have to like get off of it and do maybe a week or so period without the medication to like, so the effects are out of their body, so then the mushrooms can work. So I haven't really figured out a good answer to that yet. But if anybody does have a similar experience or story, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. And this is really about understanding your body and understanding that this is a very alternative medicine. The plant medicine, still a lot we don't know. And we can also do this a lot of ways. Andy had mentioned chocolates. Sometimes microdosing can come in pill form. It's already prepackaged for you. You can also eat the dry mushrooms. You can also have it in teas as well. So Andy, can you talk a little bit more about maybe the ways or the products that Grateful Mushrooms offers, mushrooms, different products that are offered in dosage and how you can access that? Because someone had mentioned, I don't know how to access it, and that is fine. So if you want to talk about the process of obtaining mushrooms from someone like yourself who's a cultivator.
Sure. Well, first I'll go over ways you can consume them. You can make a tea. Psilocybin is water soluble, so just making a tea, and they have what they call a lemon tech, which if you're mixing the psilocybin with a citrus like a lemon, or maybe you've heard eating oranges increases your trip as well. The citrus helps digest the psilocybin so that as you're eating it, it's digesting faster. And that kind of goes hand in hand with when I said eat it on an empty stomach, because it will digest faster and you'll trip a little harder. So it's all going with that as well. The lemon tech is basically you grind up the mushrooms, and I think you put them in like a shot glass, and you squirt a lemon over it, and you basically like take it as a shot like that. It's disgusting. I don't really recommend it, but tea is the way to go. Just soak it in some water, and you can drink it like tea. But for people who have tried mushrooms, they taste awful. And I put them in chocolates, and you have chocolate bars that are an eighth. They have an eighth of mushrooms in them, and they can break into 24 different squares. So you can eat the whole bar and go on a trip, or you can just break off a square, and it's like 0.0149 or something, and that's a microdose. Um, or there's capsules for microdoses, which are always nice because you don't have to taste the mushrooms either. I wouldn't recommend the capsules for a macrodose, but for a microdose, the capsules are the way to do it. So what I offer is chocolate bars, microdoses, or just regular mushrooms. But there is also teas, and people. I know there's gummies out there and whatnot that people make. I can't think of anyone who makes tea, but like other chocolate bars out there, like Humboldt Mycology. That's my buddy David, who was down in Guatemala with us as well. They do chocolate bars as well over in California, but you can get them through me. Basically, just find me on Instagram at Grateful Mushrooms, and I can ship them throughout the country.
Awesome. Thanks. Yeah. I highly recommend. Like I said, Andy is he was my space holder during my journey. So he's
Can
very
we
well.
tell that story, please?
Oh my God. Yeah, we can. So there's this thing in the community of mushroom indulgers called a hero's journey, or a hero's dose, which is a full 5 grams. And because I was in a space where I was capable of doing that with incredible space holders, I decided to take the journey because I felt like I was in a comfortable place. It was beautiful. It was incredible being in Guatemala, being in the forest. It was amazing. For me personally, I spoke to mushrooms and they helped me understand what happens to habits. So I was able to see what happens when we break habits, and habits like they become fractal and then they become new patterns, which is incredible. And yeah, it was a very long journey. I will be very honest. A 5-gram hero journey lasts many hours. And truly, Andy was the person, for whatever reason, I only felt like Andy could be around me than anyone else. I felt like Andy was my guide. He was my like source of life. And in my journey, I'll be very honest, I had a point where I was starting to confuse reality. I was a bit unsure if I was still existing as a human being. And I'll be very honest, it was a very challenging journey, but I felt like having Andy around was the reason why I was able to do this. And I was able to see things and understand and comprehend and digest this experience. So there was a time where Andy was sitting next to me and I said, Andy, I just need you to sit here with me, just so I know I'm still alive. So sit with me and you don't have to say anything. I just want to remember that I'm still a human being and that I'm in this experience. So yeah, it was quite a journey. I have not taken a macro dose like that in a very long time, simply because most of the time when I'm using mushrooms, I'm by myself because I've used them so often. I know my own dosage and I've worked with mushrooms for a while. If I were to take a journey like that, I would do it in a space with a space holder and somebody who is taking care of me if anything were to feel uncomfortable or unsure. And like that journey, the hero's journey, I needed someone with me to make sure that they were available. Yeah, it was fun. And now Andy and I have this bond forever and ever and ever. But yeah, so Andy can ship these chocolates to wherever. I actually just put his Instagram on the chat here if you want to add Andy there. But that concludes kind of like us talking at you. And I'm sorry, I know these are like meetups and we want to chat, but I feel like there's so much information that we want to share. So I want to get to questions. So questions about anything, questions about mushrooms, microdosing, macrodosing, my spiritual journey, anything. Go ahead, Desmond.
All right, so my first question for me would be for Andy, do you have any other types of mushrooms other than psilocybin?
That I offer?
Yes.
Not at the moment, no, but I plan on starting to grow lion's mane and some oyster varieties as well.
Okay. Interesting. All right, thank you.
Yeah. Can I ask a question to Desmond about Amanita muscaria?
Oh, sure.
How's that going?
Well, actually, I was listening to this path, my spiritual path. I cannot even map it out. It's just taking me in a whole world of stuff. So I don't even remember how I got onto this lady on, maybe it was YouTube, Amanita Dreamer, something or another. But anyway,
Yeah.
I found her and she was talking about, basically, for those who do not know what Amanita muscaria is, it's the Super Mario Brother mushroom. All right, that's what it looks like. So I'm at the beginning of taking it. I started my I guess my protocol or something or another. I did my first 3 days trying to find what my microdose. I'm microdosing right now. And I'm in search of what my macrodose is. So today was like my I guess 4th day into it, trying to find the macrodose. So let's see, we've been on here for 51 minutes, so I'm waiting to see anything. I will say this one thing. I will say one thing. Since I started with it, I don't remember how, like, what my quality of dreams have been before. But every single night I have had dreams, I remember them. Last night I had 2 dreams. I woke up in the middle, I had another set of dreams. Like, the dreams are for real. So that's what I will say about that.
For
Cool.
sure. For sure. Yeah, dreams as well as for the spiritual journey. The spiritual journey, I once again, I had mentioned I'm a psychic medium. A lot of my readings, I have dreams about them before they happen. So dreams, even on like the mushroom level, is just juicing up our brains to get all the goods. Someone also mentioned this as well, Fantastic Fungi. If you haven't watched it yet, I highly, highly
That's a
highly
great,
recommend.
great,
It's on Netflix. It's really, I mean, someone had mentioned that they had watched it. for anyone who is unsure of mushrooms and doesn't understand or wants to understand the history, wants to understand why, this is truly incredible, absolutely incredible. If anyone would like to take the time, I promise you will not be disappointed. So yeah, just wanted to add that one in.
Can I piggyback off of that with that?
Yeah, please.
Yes, speaking of that, like one of the guys who's talking in that documentary, Paul Stamets, like his stuff on YouTube, like anything he's talking about, we should listen to.
Yeah.
Whatever he's talking about, Paul Stamets, listen to that guy. It's incredible.
Yep. Yeah, he is incredible. He's the person. Any other questions? And there's no dumb questions here, please. I mean,
I want to answer and clear up any questions about psilocybin or microdosing or wanting to try it or whatever. Any questions? Psychedelics in general.
Yeah, no dumb questions. You can in chat. You can go off mute. Totally up to you.
I have a question.
My
go
question
ahead.
is how can you hear me?
Yeah. I think we just had two people go at the same time. Go ahead.
Okay. Have you ever heard of any experiences where psilocybin mushrooms have helped with dealing with physical pain to a degree?
Physical pain, I have not. And I've heard of people kind of taking it for chronic pain, but I've heard of it like helping with headaches and cluster headaches. I believe there's research on that. But as far as physical pain, I don't know, like if you break your arm, if like, I guess it would depend on what kind of physical pain.
Well, chronic pain would be chronic pain would be more of the example.
More of what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, the mind's a crazy thing, and it's running the show in our bodies. So if a chronic pain is a result of the mind, then the mushrooms can help fix that for sure. But as far as like healing you faster and stuff like that, not as much as I know.
All right.
Great question.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Yana. I'm actually listening with my wife, and she has a question.
Yeah,
sure.
So for first time experimenting, is this something we would be able to accomplish in like a day, like get off of whatever psych meds we're on, let them get out of our system for a week or so, and then try microdosing on, I say, a Saturday, and then Sunday we're recovering, and then Monday back to work? Or would you suggest like a 3-day period buffer kind of thing? I don't know what side effects to expect or how long it would be, or if it's like a hangover or anything.
Right. Oh yeah, no problem. I wouldn't recommend you getting off of your meds right away. I would recommend you trying a microdosing while you're on your meds. Make sure it doesn't work with what you're taking first before you start going to those lengths. And then, I mean, even if microdose starts working, then maybe like start taking a higher dose. Maybe like a 2-gram dose is usually a good dose that I tell people to take, and you're not gonna freak out, but you're definitely gonna feel some effects of psilocybin, and you'll definitely have a good little trip. As far as hangover and whatnot, there's no hangover whatsoever. The residual effects are more, I would say, happy. It's more of a enlightening thing. If you were to do and the duration of the trip is only 5 hours. It only takes, and if you take it on an empty stomach, it's probably going to be even less than that, because it depends on how fast it digests. So when it's done digesting, you're done tripping. But that's usually around 5 to 6 hours. And I mean, like I said, there's residual effects. So like you're going to be feeling good all night, into the next day. But, as far as feeling in control, like you might feel in control the whole time too. And that's great, but yeah, 5 hours. So take it on a Saturday morning. Like, I mean, you're fine by Saturday night. You could go
Awesome.
out Saturday night if you
We
wanted
do
to.
Saturday, we do me Sunday. That sounds
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Yes.
We'll
You're
do
very
Yana on
welcome.
Saturday. We'll do me on Sunday.
There you go.
I
Perfect.
have a full-time job
Yes.
at the moment.
Thank you.
Yeah, no
Sure.
problem.
Yeah, there's another good question. Good question.
I had a question about setting intention beforehand and what that looks like for different people. I've heard some things, but I just don't feel like I've really honed in on a good practice for myself. And I was just wondering kind of like what you guys do.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, what I have done, and this is only through the courses that I've done. I haven't really done it solo by myself, but it's just taking a notebook and writing down, um, what you want, what you want, what do you want? If you want to be happy, write down you want to be happy, and then the mushrooms will focus on that, and they'll tell you what's not making you happy. I guarantee it. And yeah, so I maybe Mish has a better ritual, because I feel mine was just kind of learning from other people's rituals, and it was basically just writing in a notebook, what we wanted out of the trip.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So intention setting is something that I do with mushrooms, but it's also something that I do within my practice as well with psychic mediumship for my clients. Really kind of sitting with yourself and quieting down. Doing a guided meditation is always nice as well. That's it also helps with the experience, but just thinking about what questions you have, what kind of support you need, what assistance this is going to bring you. It's once again, the mushrooms are going to decide what they need to do anyways. They're in control, and they do what they do. I wanted a really fun journey, but sometimes that doesn't happen. But even going into it, just saying, I accept that this experience is meant for me, not to me. I accept this what I'm about to see is an experience that will help me grow. I accept that this is the support that I need from planet Earth, because this is coming from Earth and providing us with something that we are only able to see with the assistance. So really I personally meditate about a half an hour before I take mushrooms. And for me as well, whether it's in mushroom form, whether it's in chocolate form, whether it's in pill form, I actually hold it within my hands at the physical touch of it, and actually talking to them as like, okay, you little shits, where this is no, this is going to be a good journey. No, and it's like, okay, thank you so much for growing. Thank you so much for coming into my path. Thank you for this experience, whatever you may be willing to show me. Something I really would love to learn today, which I did in Guatemala, was how do I break patterns? How do I let go of things that are no longer serving me? How do I change this experience into something that will benefit me rather than drain me? And really talking to them, because mushrooms can hear and they do have senses. And it's taking the time for that. That's something I do even in life. Once again, with mushrooms, without mushrooms, in my practice, out of my practice. It's taking the time to be with yourself.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Great question. These are all good questions. And there's no dumb questions, I promise. How do you know if a mushroom has psilocybin in it?
You eat it, and if you start tripping, there's a good chance. One way you can tell is the mushroom will bruise blue, because psilocybin reacts with oxygen and it turns it blue. As far as and there's other mushrooms that do that as well, so it's not even like a telltale sign. You really just have to eat it and find out, honestly, or you test it.
There.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah, go ahead, Desmond.
All right, last question. How do you know if you've taken too much?
Oh, you'll know. Too much psilocybin?
Yes, I will say yes. Too much psilocybin.
Um, I don't think you can really. I mean, if you've heard Paul Stamets talk about how he took that like handful, or I've heard the story like told 10 different ways, and he does change the amount every time, but he says it was around 20 grams or so. And like I said earlier, 5 grams is the heftiest dose you'll ever need. And this dude took 20 grams. So, I mean, they're non-lethal, they're not
Yeah,
toxic,
yeah.
so eat away. And I mean,
Mm.
that's just, and they're very safe. Like, it's just more of a tribute to like how safe they are as far as psychedelics go. If you want to dabble in psychedelics, start with these, and then, or maybe like mescaline, that'd be another natural one. But like, before you like, LSD is pretty safe as well, but it is made in a lab. So, you know,
Big difference.
but yeah, mushrooms, I don't think you can eat too much. I mean, like, you know, you're going to be the one regretting it or not regretting it, however you want to look at it. You're going to be the one learning from the trip. So, how much you want to learn?
Yeah. It's also quite, and I don't know if this experience happens with other people, but for myself personally, I start feeling sick. Like mushrooms naturally, they make you feel like you're not hungry at the time. And I will start feeling like this is too much. Like even like when you're eating it, you kind of you'll feel like, okay, that's
Yeah,
enough.
for sure.
That's enough.
Yeah.
Like your body will naturally tell you, like, okay, please stop. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
And you're definitely going to feel like you want to throw up, possibly in the beginning of this trip, or, when they start digesting, but you just got to, about 20 minutes, that goes away. So it's worth it once you get over that.
Yeah, that's a good question. Anything else? Great. Okay. Those are all the questions, unless anyone wants to drop any in the chat. Yeah, so thank you, Andy. Oh my God, this has been a journey more than anything, and so unbelievably grateful. Thank you for living in your gifts. This is 100% a spiritual gift as well. I truly believe it's not just psychic abilities. These are spiritual gifts. I know some people expressed empathy, intuition. These are gifts as well. If you have psychic gifts, clairvoyance, clairaudience, I'm really excited to share that there's going to be more of these events happening. So in 2 weeks from now, we're going to be talking about another plant medicine called ayahuasca, which is a vine that grows naturally in the indigenous regions of the Amazon. My friend Moselle is going to be coming, incredible woman. She's going to talk about what ayahuasca is, the plant medicine, the principles, what it provides to you. And really just, I will share my experience with ayahuasca as well. Ayahuasca was the reason why I started my psychic abilities came back. Mushrooms, of course, helped me out, but ayahuasca is truly the reason why I am back into my psychic journey. It really started there. And then every Tuesday, we also come together. It's 12 p.m. Eastern time, so it's like a lunchtime chat. We have quite a few people who join, and we just talk about our spiritual gifts and weird occurrences and things that happen to us, and kind of discussing gifts. We do a guided meditation as well, just to kind of take us through that experience. And then throughout the month of May, we're going to talk about uncovering your spiritual gifts with EMDR, eye movement desensitization response, I think it is, with my friend who is a clinical psychologist. Uncovering spiritual gifts with sexual energy, from my friend who is a sexual empowerment and sex educator. But if there's any topics you want to see, I have a very big network of lots of people. I've traveled to almost like more than 30 countries, and I've met some incredible people along the way who I'm slowly starting to integrate. Oh, sorry, astrocartography as well. I have a friend who's coming on to talk about astromapping and how certain parts of the world and energy centers within the way you were born. So there's so many topics that are coming up, and I'm really excited about all of them. So please feel free to join. Let me I'm going to go off recording now, but before that, thank you all for coming. Stay on and we'll continue to chat. And I appreciate you all. So I'm going to finish that recording. Stop recording.